So here are a couple of examples just to give you a sense of kind of what some people have done to try to measure corruption. So, and kind of what are the magnitudes they got. So this is a paper that looked at education in Uganda. And what they did was they did the following. They said, look, every school receives a grant from the central government for some particular kinds of textbooks, or for particular kinds of block grant they can use for sort of extra materials and whatever. So they just sent surveyors to every school, and they said, how much of this block grant did you actually receive at your school? Right? And they compared the amount that the schools received to the amount that the central government sent out. So they got a note saying, school number 182, was sent, however many thousands of dollars, and they asked them how much they received, and they got some other number, and they subtracted. Okay? And when they do that, they get this amazing number that schools reported receiving only 13% of what was sent out by the national government. Okay? So what do you make of this? Right, it's a very low number. It is an incredibly low number. So what do you think it means?
That there's a middleman who take certain percentages.
Like a big percentage. If it explains all this, it would be a big percentage. Right, so maybe there are middlemen who are taking some percentage of this. Right.
We also have no idea if it's being taken at the government level, the school, or the middlemen, any combination of them.
Right, we have no idea where it's going. Right? So we have no idea. Is it the central government who's sort of, not sending it out? Is it some middleman who's intercepting it? We don't know where it's going. What else do you make of it?
It makes me really curious about how they actually do the transfer. If they're just sending guys with cash all along a road.
Right. So how are you it's a lot of money to steal. How are you actually, if you're stealing this money, how do you actually what do they do? And if they send it to the bank account, maybe that would not be a little tricky to do this. Yeah.
I'm sort of wondering if every school is getting 90-ish% skimmed off the top, or if it's a lot of schools are getting nothing and a couple schools are getting it.
You have to be most of the schools getting nothing to get only 13% getting there.
I mean, I guess theoretically maybe you could say everyone's just skimming off 90%, but that's...
No, so in general you're absolutely right to think about heterogeneity. It could be, is the 90, but still in that case it would be 80% zeros, right, and 20% hundreds would be the, right, to get this on average, or something like that, roughly. So that doesn't explain a huge amount of it in this case.
I wonder if the schools just have no idea how much money they're supposed to be getting, or if there's no way for them to communicate with the central government. Why aren't they doing?
Right, that's an interesting question. Why aren't they doing something? Why aren't they complaining? What's going on? That's a really good question. Okay, so all of you guys is anyone skeptical of this number? Yeah, one of you guys in the back. I haven't heard either of you. Yeah.
Perhaps they're only reporting that they received that, but they actually do receive more and are taking less.
Well, so maybe they're taking it at the exactly. Maybe they're taking it at the lower level. What other? You had another answer?
Yeah, I was saying I'm not skeptical of it just from personal experience.
You're not skeptical.
Yeah, I've seen where people at the Ministry of Education will take money, then you get down to the principals and they'll also take money and report less. Related story, my boyfriend is actually Zimbabwean and he went home to do a project for a school in Zimbabwe. And the headmaster of the school was trying to get money from him to go drink beer and build his house with MIT funds. And
Well, I certainly hope that he didn't get the MIT funds.
it was actually recorded on camera. He didn't know that.
I see. Oh, great.
On a microphone, and it was just funny watching the entire thing. But it was also sad because there were plenty of kids who needed the help at the school.
Right. So you're not skeptical.
No.
And any other skeptics?
I was thinking it could just be a school underreporting, trying to get more. That's a common thing.
Right. So maybe they're underreporting, trying to get more. Okay. Yeah. A couple more.
Is it possible that the central government isn't actually sending out as much as they say they are? Is that something that could be going on?
Right. So along those same. Oh yeah. Okay. So that's one possibility. What else? Yeah.
It could be that the central government knows that a lot of the money is going missing, and so they send out more, but then 13% is actually what the schools need.
Could be. So let me throw out one other idea, which is how well do you guys think that these schools in rural Uganda are? How good do you think they are at accounting? Right? They're probably not up to generally accepted accounting principles, right? And so I actually think it's completely possible that a lot of this money is disappearing and being siphoned off. But on the other hand, you have to think through, like, maybe like actually they're not just keeping track. So maybe they get a bunch of monies from the central government. This is one particular block grant. They get tons of different block grants and tons of different types of funding. They get funding for the salaries, whatever. And they just keep it in a big cash register. And some guy comes from a survey and says, hey, I wonder how much of the block grant. I'm like, I don't know how much of that block grant I got. Right? So it's also possible that this could be an accounting issue. And so, but I think that you're right. It could be all the things you mentioned, or it could be, like, we don't really know. But it's certainly a very striking number. The other thing that happened is they published this number. Everybody was outraged at this 13% number, as they should be, right? And they did it again a couple years later, and they found 80% of the money was getting through, right? And there's two interpretations of that. One is, now there was some scrutiny about this, right? Sort of saying, look, this is a horrible problem. Like, you guys have to really start, like, clamping down. And so maybe actually reduce corruption. The other accounting story is that someone said, oh, gee, these block grants, I better start paying attention to those block grants and make sure I keep track of them in like a separate ledger and like improve my accounting. So the only reason I mention that is it's worth, when you see these kind of headline numbers, being a little skeptical, just making sure you think through kind of like what they're measuring is the difference between what the school sent and what the central government sent and what the school claims it receives. And that's not, like, people will say, aha, I found corruption that's like 87%, but you have to think through, like, is it in fact quite that big, or could there be other things that are accounting for it? And I'm not saying, by the way, that it's not 13%. I'm just saying we don't know. Like, we should think through. I think it's certainly plausible that money's being stolen, but you need to sort of you need to think a little harder.